Don't get cocky, mongrel. I am a king who has tasted all the pleasures the world has to offer. Hold your tongue and listen. True joy, you see, might be thought of as a form of the soul. The question isn't whether it exists or not, but whether you know it. You have yet to see what form your soul has taken. Have you awakened from your dream?
Emotional storytelling is one of those concepts that is easy to feel, yet difficult to conceptualize when it comes to putting it into place or examining why it works in certain circumstances and not others. There are many elements that can contribute to this, such as high stakes, effective direction, or a meticulous character focus, but oftentimes the lasting impact seems to come down to the intangibles, the abstract concepts that remain a mystery to most. It's a sort of magic involved with storytelling. I can try to explain why something appeals to me emotionally, but due to subjective experience, my reasons could be entirely different from yours, yet we can still derive huge fulfillment from the same story for different reasons. It's a bit of a mystery to most of us unfamiliar with the writing craft, but the rewards are plentiful for those who can achieve this with their stories. It's pretty easy to see why writers bank on this emotion. Audience investment is vital, and emotional immersion is generally the strongest way to do that. A lot of the most successful stories are evocative and pathos-driven in one way or another, and Fate Zero is no different in that regard. From the swelling emotional roller coaster of Ryder and Waver's journey to the deep tragedy of most of the others. However, oftentimes, things must be done in deliberate moderation. Oversaturating one's story in pathos treads dangerously close to overindulgence and radical melodrama, which can become tiring and numbing, so it is often necessary for tools to be used to prevent this from happening. This is part of why characters in the vein of what has been coined by Carl Jung as the Jester archetype are so valuable. And for more information on Jesters and their role in fiction, a link will be provided in the description for an overview. These characters are often inserted into emotional fiction to offer a counterweight and balance, and to accentuate the arguments of the writing on display. Jesters are detached, not overly concerned with the events of the story, mainly engaging themselves with the plot due to some sort of personal enjoyment or entertainment. They tend to casually peel back the layers of the story and its characters in a way that only a neutral third party could, though they can at times be shown as misled in order to prove some sort of alternate point. They are something of a choir, pounding down the fourth wall at times to add depth and extra dimensions to the characters and events at play. They are unrestricted and free, purely invested in their own needs, and dictated by what they perceive to be the singular truth. Due to their aloof and detached nature, there is an aura of power surrounding Jesters that draws people to them. They are unconcerned, uninvested, secure, often all the things that we wish we were. And because they represent this freedom, security, and the aforementioned truth, their playful nature is enough to make actions that would otherwise be rage-inducing seem not that big a deal to most of the audience. The Jester is often a great boon to dramatic writing, and they can offer so much more narrative value than it would seem on the surface. The story of Fate Zero understands that it is very emotion-fueled, and simultaneously understands the dynamic benefits of these detached archetypes. And that is why Gilgamesh is such a vastly important character, both structurally and thematically. He does exactly what he needs to do to make the story flourish, and without him, it would suffer in quite a few places. There is first the stark motivational contrast he represents in comparison to the other characters. As I've said before, these characters, whether they be uplifting or tragic, are possessed of some sort of deeply emotional motivation that defines them. Waver longs for respect and stature, Saber wants to save her kingdom, Kadia wants to save Sakura, Lancer desires to be immersed in glorious romantic battle to find salvation from his past, Kiritsugu wants to purge all of the pain from the world. But Gilgamesh looks at the whole thing as mild entertainment. He views himself as the one true king, the god amongst these mongrels, and the idea of lowering himself to play at this foolish war is insulting to his very existence. He sits back, he watches, he chimes in once in a while, but he's so uninvested in this child's play that it really helps to throw into sharp relief just how much the others need this, how desperate they are, and why this grail means so much to them. He is a mediator of sorts, like a smug moderator in a debate, even if he doesn't do anything close to moderating. His presence allows the contrasting ideals, personalities, and motivations to stand out and contrast even more, while he remains entertaining through his perceived superiority. But when Berserker essentially forces him on a level playing field with the rest, he gets extremely angry. He has excessive pride, and when someone disrespects his radiance by looking at him as something other than the god of this world, he will not tolerate it. He puts a nice spin on the theme of pride. For example, while Waver's pride causes him to look upwards and continuously strive for more, Gilgamesh's leads him to look downwards on others. And as it is initially with Waver, the only reason Gilgamesh really takes place in the war is because he wants to solidify his status. Berserker is disrespecting him, so he feels that there is a debt that he has to settle. And while it is a formality, he must take his rightful place as the number one. But his early role slowly fades in prominence as the story moves on, and Gilgamesh truly comes into his own as the choir, the onlooker, and the jester of Fate Zero. Being summoned as the servant of Tokiomi Tosaka stirs nothing in Gilgamesh. Tosaka has motivations and a personality that are not interesting to his servant in the slightest. As such, Gilgamesh's interests early on are fleeting fancies, and he's utterly bored by the man who calls himself his master. But Tokiomi's accomplice and partner, that's an entirely different story. Because in Kide, Gilgamesh sees someone who can turn this mostly stale battle into a dastardly interesting spectacle worthy of his radiance. Kide is a lost soul, unsure of his desires in life, indifferent to everything, and not aware of what draws him to fight in this war, which allows Gilgamesh to look upon him like a piece of clay, free to sculpt and shape as he desires. Gilgamesh's control over Kide is not forceful. It's a sort of sly, playful manipulation. The key is, he does not bluntly tell Kide what to do, which is wise, as that would make him similar to those in Kide's life who have tried to tell him what was right, those who he was adverse to. Gilgamesh does not make his mind up for him. He just offers him another perspective.
Kire, why must you define joy so narrowly? Where is the paradox in finding suffering and tragedy simply other forms of joy? There is no one fixed type of joy. You are confused because you fail to understand that.
Maybe you are a twisted psychopath. But what's so wrong about that? Don't try to avoid the inevitable. Embrace it, be honest, and become who you want to become. Take me on as your servant, and let's have some fun.
Kire Kotomine. I find myself interested in you.
He works so well as a third party here because he does not consider himself a part of humanity. He considers himself above it. In terms of perspective, this elevates him above the point of view of every other character, and that makes all the difference here. He is one of us, a part of the audience, and he is intent on making things as interesting as possible for himself, and by proxy, for us. His fascination with Kide really heightens his narrative impact, because not only does he make it a personal mission to play around with him, which has great impact on the story, but here he becomes more Jester-like than ever, just pushing and prodding things, manipulating and planning, to see how things play out, and how these foolish mortals dance. And aside from Kide, Gilgamesh finds even more entertainment to indulge in through Saber, which gives some insight into another aspect of his personality and function. He shows his utility as a choir better than ever by using his manner of thinking to poke holes in Saber's honorable, altruistic mindset in the Banquet of Kings. In a story about ideology, he sticks a knife in all of the romantic, complex ones by simply stating his. He is the one true king. Everything belongs to him. Everyone should bend the knee to his glory, and anyone who does not do so is treasonous. It allows him to properly dissect the views of people like Saber, Kirei, and Ryder, and offer them new perspectives without their own bias in order to lead to his desired results. Because to him, these characters are all a mildly entertaining simulation. Toys in his toy box.
It is too painful to look upon.
Which is exactly what makes her so endearing. The unattainable dream she held so dear was certain to explode in a brilliant flare that would burn her to ash. The tears of bitter lamentation she shed. How sweet they'd have tasted as she laid there dying.
True to his function as the choir, Gilgamesh helps to get to the heart of the messages in Fate Zero, often reflecting the themes of the story or predicting future events. As I've said in previous videos, Fate Zero is a show in the vein of a classic Greek tragedy, a story characterized by tragic inevitability. And Gilgamesh's tendency to predict things not only plays into that, but is one of the reasons why this Greek tragedy structure works. Midway through, he sadistically muses that Saber's dreams will come crashing down, which is what happens. He even predicts his own victory from the beginning, and he foresees the downfall of all of those possessed by ideals, literally spelling out what is arguably the main theme of the story.
Uniting dreams beneath a banner of conquest. I praise your efforts, at least. But foolish warriors, have you not learned? Dreams disappear when the dreamer wakes. Every last one of them, with no exception.
But in a move that integrates drama, emotional weight, characterization, and a stunning consistency with regards to his function, Gilgamesh shows true respect to a mere 2 characters in the story who he would consider his opponents. When it came to Kariya, he strung him along only to have Kirei destroy him. He looks upon Saber as if she is his plaything. He views Kiritsugu as pitifully naive, he has no respect for Assassin, Lancer, Tokiomi, or Caster, and he doesn't even think about the rest of the cast. Yet, he spares words of sincere respect for Waver and Ryder, the 2 characters who represent the truest thematic intent in Fate Zero, as I argued in my video on the topic. All dreams die when the dreamer wakes, so never allow yourself to wake.
But child, if you are truly a loyal subject to him, your duty now is to avenge your fallen sovereign.
If I challenge you, I'll die.
Yes, of course you will.
I can't do that. I was ordered by him to survive.
Your loyalty is splendid. Never allow anything to tarnish it.
In the same manner as characters like Hisoka and Pariston from Hunter x Hunter, Kimberly from Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, or Izaya Orihara from Durarara, Gilgamesh is a stunning character that manages to perform a very important narrative function while simultaneously being incredibly engaging to watch due to his devilishly enticing personality and his entertaining interactions. He is a tremendous plot device that provides dark drama, extra narrative layers, and balance to the ideological duels, contributing an important element of theatrical disconnect to have the story play out in full force. Ever the Jester, his influence is felt from episode 1 and never lets up, solidifying him as one of the most important characters in the story. Many thanks for watching.
Feel free to challenge me again as often as you like, King of Conquerors. This entire world is my garden until the very end of time. Thus, I guarantee you this. It will never bore you. It will always be entertaining.